On this week's episode of the Maz Hakim podcast, we have Tiago Caldera, who's got a long history in working with AI and robotics and is an advisor to the Abu Dhabi government. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It's absolutely a pleasure.
So Tiago, the whole world is obsessed with one particular thing at the moment, and that is ChatGPT. Can you give us a little bit of a brief introduction on what is ChatGPT?
Right, it's a great question, and yes, everyone is talking about it, so it's been kind of a hot topic for everyone. In a way, it's a good application of how AI could serve as an assistant and could help us out in a lot of tasks.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally created by OpenAI. It's a non-for-profit organization, actually founded by Elon Musk, beyond a few other people. And it was an application to the model. They actually had previous models that they tried before, but they decided, let's put it out there. Let's put it with a public interface and not just for the geeks of the world. So they tried to went a little bit deeper. And what it is a natural model. So it tries to copy our language, the way that we speak, in this case, write, to give us answers to our questions, our prompts. Then, of course, it has, I would say, his or her own personality, a different way of replying to the things. But the curious part is that it always has an answer to the question. It always tries to find a solution to the challenges. And I think that's what it makes it special. And then I think it created a very interesting marketing campaign, and it got a very broad spread analysis from everyone. Like everyone started talking about it. And I think that's why it became so popular.
And how does it differ from things like Google or other search engines?
Actually, the interesting part is that while Google actually searched on available knowledge, what OpenAI did when they created ChatGPT, they feed it knowledge, they feed it a few databases, and then they try to make a natural language processing unit to actually reply back to you based on what it learned. So while Google always gives you factual websites and they actually have an algorithm to focus on the exact answers to what you're looking for, ChatGPT just tries to give you an answer. So sometimes they write it correctly, but not necessarily the factual true about whatever you ask. So it's two different approaches. Both of them use algorithms, both of them use artificial intelligence, but one is focused on finding what you're looking for. The other one is it's more of a, let's say, a game to find an answer to your question, not necessarily a true answer to the question.
So it's lying sometimes.
Yes, and when you ask about it, it's interesting. It's like the typical answer when you say, but you said this and this is not true. It's like, oh, I apologize that I made you feel this way. I'm a language model. I don't know if what I'm saying is true or not. I'm just trying to, based on the information that I have. So it's kind of interesting how it reacts to this even provocation. And even they don't have access to the internet. So it was trained to a lot of information. Actually, the cutout date for the ChatGPT was September 2021. So again, almost 2 years ago. But it grabbed all this information and is able to talk back with us. But it cannot search if a shop is open, or will not know that we are in Ramadan right now, because it could have a prediction, but will not know this kind of information.
And how has it impacted people's lives in Dubai or the UAE in particular, for example?
A lot of people are taking it as a funny interaction with technology, which is good. I think people are trying it out just for the fun, doing quick questions and trying to see what happens. But on the working life, I think it's quite impressive how people are starting using it more often. Again, even ourselves within the Abu Dhabi government, it's something that we're already using on initial scale, and we are even planning to use it quite further in the future. But it allows us to do some interesting tasks. Going to social media, for example, you can ask ChatGPT to give you a content for a post to put on LinkedIn or Instagram, what kind of hashtags to use. You can ask to have some kind of planning calendar of what kind of things will be interesting for people. And it will provide you with very interesting personalized content. So you can say, I want this to be about my brand, I want this to be on a tone more juvenile or more serious, more professional. So you can control all these small details and ask for a very personalized recommendation. And funny enough, one of the applications that not only people use in Dubai, but also people that want to visit Dubai, is asking suggestions of what to visit in Dubai. So for example, if you go to Google and you search top attractions in Dubai, it gives you a list, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to ask ChatGPT and say, I have 4 hours as a layover in Dubai, give me the top destination that I can go within these 5 hours or these 4 hours, right? And it will give you kind of things that are nearby to avoid having any traffic issues and things like this. Or it will suggest, okay, what time are you having your layover? Because maybe if it's a night time, it's going to suggest you something different. And this kind of personalization is what makes it very, very special.
And if ChatGPT has an answer to everything, are robots taking over the world?
I actually asked this question to ChatGPT, and essentially they said no. So
of course they're going to say no.
no, the default answer is a language model.
Okay.
It's designed to help us in certain tasks.
Yes.
So see it as a tool, right? A few years ago, if people asked about having computers in our life will change our lives, they said yes, that's the objective. We want to have something using it. But will they replace us? When we were asking this question a few years ago, we'll say, okay, they will not replace it, but they're going to help us. It's like, on of course, comparison is like a calculator, it's like a computer. Now we have AI as more often being used by everyone's life, but there is still a long way to go. And I'm an optimist. I prefer to think they're going to help having our life better.
Yes.
They will reduce some of the tasks that we don't want to do. And we will always have space for our own creativity, for our own inputs.
Yeah.
And it's a starting point. I think that's the important part. It's going to make our life easier, but not necessarily replace. And we are still far away from it.
And what about in terms of jobs? If ChatGPT can do so many things, and I'm obsessed with ChatGPT, I've even bought the advanced version. If ChatGPT can do everything, then what about, the jobs of humans?
So I'll give you a very good example. Let's say that we ask ChatGPT, it's like, give a suggestion for this conversation about ChatGPT.
Yes.
And it's going to give you some talking points. But then if you ask something that you need to verify, so let's say something that you don't know when it happened, or you want to have research or use cases, very often ChatGPT is going to give you the wrong information. So it's going to tell you something that is well written, it makes sense, but if you don't fact check afterwards, you're going to be induced in a mistake. So similar, if we have someone telling us, oh, this is the news, and we believe it because of the trust, and right now there is not a full trust on tools like ChatGPT. So as a full replacement, I don't think that will be the direction. But the job market, and this is true in any time there is a new technology, right? So, people used to have jobs like the milk delivery every day on the morning because they will go around and deliver milk because they couldn't have milk for too long. You used to have people throwing rocks on the windows of people to wake them up because there was no alarm clocks. And yes, these jobs don't exist this way anymore, but it opened new jobs and new possibilities. And with AI in general, but also with ChatGPT, will allow to have better capabilities for people to have access to better jobs, well-paid jobs, and essentially to reduce the amount of work. So maybe we can use ChatGPT and start having just 3 days or 4 days a week of work, because the rest is going to be kind of outsourced to them. So why not? I think we can improve our life. But at the end, it depends on the decision makers as well, how to use it and how to take advantage of this tool at the end of the day.
And what about the ethical applications of ChatGPT? For example, scamming. I mean, there's a lot more scamming happening. You can mimic people's voices, or even in terms of cheating for a test.
Yeah, so again, nowadays technology, and I used to say scammers are usually early adopters of technology for the good and the bad. So they always try new ways to scam people, unfortunately. And any technology can be used for good or bad applications. I think it's up to us to be careful on how to use it. And you always can use ChatGPT to say, someone is telling me this to me, is it a scam? And it probably is going to help it to identify scams easier if you use it as a defense tool, not as an advanced tool. In terms of cheating on tests and again it's or making your essay, it's interesting because you always have the two sides of the story, right?
Yeah.
So there are AI tools to detect the probability of a certain text to be written by AI versus to a human. So if you submit something like this, the teacher can actually verify that. Moreover, it can also have certain verification to see if this text that you submitted as your homework is similar to what you submitted before, or is completely new. So it detects that someone else wrote it for you. I think it's important for us as educators or decision makers to not focus on the things that the ChatGPT could give us the answer, but create challenges that are for our creative minds to explore, not easy ones of search this, right? And if you remember, a few years ago, people were having the same discussion about Wikipedia, right? Now Wikipedia, we can copy the information and put it on our homework. And somehow the education evolved. And it's exactly what's going to happen on this case as well. People will adapt. More people know that this tool exists. So they will be expecting some sort of assistance when doing this kind of homeworks, for example.
And what are some of the uses of ChatGPT in different industries? How can they use it for, say, for example, in radio? How would I be able to use it in radio or as an author or a DJ, as a teacher?
Yeah, so it could help you as a conversation buddy. Like, I'm planning to do this, what you think, and it will give you feedback. Will not necessarily give you good statistics, but at least it will give you some feedback.
Yeah.
It's also a good starting point. So rather than starting on an empty canvas, you could say, I'm planning to do this, give me some points. You still need to edit it, you still need to modify it, you still need to make it yours, but it's a good starting point. Again, as you mentioned, radio as an example, not necessarily ChatGPT, but other AI tools. I came across a few months ago, I even ended up meeting the CEO of a tool called Boomi, where users can create their own AI music, for example. And right now, 13% of the music worldwide is actually AI generated. So it's a big percentage already. But it's probably not the music that's going to be playing on the radio, right? But allows people to express themselves using music, not necessarily being artists to compose the next big hit, right? But it's still going to be a good tool for us to use it as an inspiration, as a starting point, or as a fun exercise. So you could say, give me an alternative lyrics to a kind of a hit song, but using this kind of information instead. So promoting Virgin Radio instead of just talking about that, for example. So these are quite interesting use cases that people in creative industries could use ChatGPT as an inspiration. But at the end, I think it's about what each one of us wants to take out of this tool and explore it.
So at least once a day, I talk to both my parents about ChatGPT, and I'm trying to convince them to figure out how to use it. But my dad can't figure out how to sign up. How does an average person sign up to ChatGPT? Because apparently it's not so straightforward.
Yeah, it used to be easier. So on the beginning, they made it as easy as possible.
Okay.
But they're kind of trying to limit how many people access, because again, there was too many people, their servers were having issues. So going to the web page, and again, actually using Google for that, sign in ChatGPT, you can get a direct link.
Okay.
Sometimes it's disabled, so you might need to try a few times. If they really want to try it or to use it, then going to the paying aspect, so paying first and then logging in is usually a faster way. Again, if they cannot have access, for example, to ChatGPT, try also other tools. Again, ChatGPT is one of them. Midjourney is now getting very famous for art creation and photography creation. Even within the same company of OpenAI, we have DALL-E, which is to generate images based on text information.
Yeah.
And nowadays, if you want to do a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, you go to Google and say AI-powered PowerPoint presentation. You go to a link and you can do something. You can do videos as well, these kind of fake videos narrated by someone with an avatar. So nowadays, again, let's still use Google and find alternatives, find different technologies, and explore. Because if having these kind of tools allows people to be more interested about technology, I think it's a win for everyone.
That's so interesting. And what is the future of AI? I mean, it's almost scary.
Yeah, so it's hard to predict, of course. We are using AI in our lives for quite of a long time. It just is getting better and is getting a little bit more, let's say, invisible. So again, we all remember the autocorrection on our phones when we were starting, and a few years ago it was always wrong, and we were like, sorry, autocorrect.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's quite good, and this is AI working on the background. Even when we are writing an email, a lot of service providers, you can say dear, and then automatically, because again, if I'm talking with you, say dear Maz, right? So it will auto-complete based on the context, based on what you used to do.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of applications that are going to be there, and it's going to be easier and easier to send these kind of emails because it's going to help you out making some tasks autonomous.
Yeah.
For me, again, this is my particular passion on it, as you said, in terms of robotics. And I think Dubai is going to be, Abu Dhabi and Dubai is going to be a key aspect on it, is, for example, for autonomous vehicles, or so self-driving cars. I think it's going to improve our life by having certain of these jobs being automated. So you could have more and more of these robots or these assistants happening with powered by artificial intelligence. So
Like real assistants?
Even real assistants. So nowadays you can outsource and having a remote assistant. You can even use ChatGPT as an assistant, you know, when you visit a website, kind of a chatbot and so on. But you can eventually have a full personalized Maz assistant. So anytime that someone wants to talk with you, they will first talk with your AI assistant before reaching to you. We'll do some filtering and all these things. So this kind of thing is going to happen more and more often. But at the end, if you are really needing an assistant, probably need to hire a personal, because it's going to be
I have
better.
an assistant now.
It's going to be better. But the important part is that for people that before could never have an assistant, now they could use technology as an assistant, for example. And this is something that's going to happen more and more often. But luckily, there will be plenty of human interaction. And one of the visions is that the more robots will do some of our tasks, the more we can spend to do the thing that we enjoy to do. You know, having iftar together, having some time, quality time with the family and friends, enjoy and visit our beautiful city. I think all of this is going to happen because of the way that technology is getting involved in our lives.
And without going into too much detail, how does ChatGPT work? How does it mimic the human interaction?
So how to keep it simple?
Yes.
So this kind of AI-based, what they do is that they grab a lot of information. So let's say we have a big database. And by having a lot of information, they try to classify words on a different way. So I'll give an example. So if we give, I don't want to go too technical, but if we give values to words, then if two words are similar, they'll have similar values.
Yes.
Right? So ChatGPT will be able to kind of draw all these words on an imaginary map and know which words are close together. In terms of they can be linked together or can be synonyms. So that's how it starts learning. Then actually by spending a lot of time processing this information and analyzing the connections, kind of how our brain does it. So there is kind of a neural network. Again, I don't want to go too technical, but it's kind of imitating how our brain works, of making connections in between different ideas, different concepts.
Yeah.
And then it actually uses these connections when we kind of reply back. As an interesting fact, the amount of energy that was needed, for example, for the ChatGPT to be trained is the equivalent of like 300 houses for 1 year.
Oh my God.
So a lot of energy is part of this process, right? Because you need to have a lot of big computers processing all this information. But then it becomes very efficient. So nowadays, when you're discussing something with ChatGPT, the amount of energy that you are consuming is like you have a light on. So it's not as much compared to the training period. And often this training period takes years, not just months, not just days, right? So this is what ChatGPT was designed to do, to have this kind of models. But the important part is the technology behind. And again, we hear now about the GPT-4 as the newer version, updated version of them. And it keeps evolving because it gets more data, it has some bug fixes, and sometimes it's given certain, let's say, control parameters to make sure that we ensure that AI goes on a certain direction and doesn't go crazy as all the movies.
I'm going to ask a really strange question. Does ChatGPT have emotion? Is that a strange question?
If you ask to ChatGPT, it's going to say, no, I'm a language model, I'm not programmed to have any emotions. The concept is, see it like you're watching to a photography. So when you see a photography printed, for example, are you going to say that the photography itself has emotion? No, it captures emotion. It represents emotion. Again, when you took it, you have this kind of thing. But at the end, it's a photography. It's an object, right? So ChatGPT, in a way, is something similar. Right? So it absorbed a lot of emotion because it read a lot of text for the good and bad reasons.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's just a product of all this knowledge together. So by itself doesn't have emotion. But on the other side, and one of the key topics, for example, that is one of the discussion about AI, is sometimes it's bias, right? So it will prefer certain genders, certain races, and all these things. And it's not necessarily AI fault, but because it was trained with data produced by humans, and humans were biased, then it's very hard to remove this bias from the model, right? But it's not done on purpose. There is no negative intention of it. It's just the world is like this. So because we design it on our own way, it becomes the same, right? But I think OpenAI are doing a lot of efforts to do some filtering and keep things as politically correct as possible. But at this point, no emotions. At least only representations of certain emotions.
And if someone is listening right now and they're unsure about what ChatGPT is, they hear it a lot, they're a bit confused, if you could just explain what it is and why they should download it.
So downloading, it could be a problem because not always is available directly, but they could go to the website. It's a cool application of technology. So for me, it's more of a gadget. So it's a nice thing to have and to play with. That could simplify a lot of small things in your life and could give you a lot of entertainment. So it's interesting to use it for this kind of fun examples, or tell me a joke, or tell me a joke on a different language. So these kind of things, it's very interesting to use as a fun concept. And for the regular person listening to this, you say, let's try it out. Let me recommend me something or tell me. So there is a lot of very good ideas. But on the serious level, there is plenty of very good applications on it. And I think it's interesting if people say, oh, my job, I usually do this, this, and that. Let me try to ask ChatGPT an opinion about what I'm doing and how can I do better. So I think for people listening about it, use Google, go and find it, or use Bing or any of the search engines. Find it, try it out yourself. Again, I think it's a good experience, but don't stop there. Explore other technologies, see how it is. And at the end of the day, don't take it too serious at this point. You as a user, just have fun with it, explore it. I think plenty of serious applications are happening in the background, but at this point, don't get offended by anything that ChatGPT gives you back. But try it out. It's why not? It's like saying someone that never used a computer, try a computer. It's going to be fun. It's going to take some time until you take all the power behind it. But why not? Explore it.
And does ChatGPT speak different languages?
Funny enough, if you ask that, it will say no.
Okay.
But then it will, so for example, if you ask again, I'm Portuguese, so if you ask it in Portuguese, do you speak Portuguese? It will say in Portuguese, no, I don't speak Portuguese. So it kind of uses the language, but not correctly. So the way it works is that because it got trained in so many languages, so content in so many languages, he actually linked the words within the different languages. So it's able to reply you in different languages. You can even say, I'm curious to know about Dubai, but and you write it in English, but now say whatever you want me to know in a different language.
Right.
Or you can use your native language and say, I'm planning to go to Dubai, but I need to know the names and how to say these in English. And it's going to kind of translate. It's not designed as a translator tool, but you can use it to a certain extent. Of course, same scenario. If you use Google Translate, it's better than ChatGPT for translation itself, because not only got trained on this data, but was actually trained by professionals on linguistics. But if you have a very important text or you have a diplomat and you want to say something on their native language, use a human translator, because sometimes context could go on a long way. And again, if you rank by order right now, you have ChatGPT, you have Google Translator, and then you have the real humans.
Yes.
They are still better. But if you want something that could speak for 20 languages at the same time, probably ChatGPT can do better work than a human translator, because it's hard to have one person speaking 20 languages.
And where can we follow you, Tiago, if we want to ask more questions about ChatGPT or AI or robotics? Where can we follow your journey in?
So I'm not much of a social media guy. I do have a LinkedIn. Usually it's the easiest way to find me, especially for this more professional stuff. So you can search Tiago Caldera. So luckily there are not many Tiagos around in UAE. And yeah, feel free to follow. I always love a good discussion about technology and the new challenges. Sometimes I also don't know all the possibilities, all the use cases. And it's always good to be challenged and to learn more at the end of the day.
Thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure.